I just want to start off by saying, this applies to public and private sector employees. So even though Janus gets you all the way out if you're in the public sector, if for some reason you are held to a window period and you have to stay in longer, you might be able to use this option as well. So Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 requires employers and unions to accommodate the religious practice of their employees unless doing so would impose, and I quote, an undue hardship on the conduct of the employer's business, close quote. Jewish employees who believe for religious reasons that they cannot support or be affiliated with their union may request a religious accommodation so that they don't have to pay dues or fees. We'll discuss in a few minutes what religion actually means under the statute, but I'll just quote, the Supreme Court. It says, the term religion includes all aspects of religious observance and practice as well as belief. So how do you request a religious accommodation? Here are the nuts and bolts. First, you're going to write a letter requesting the religious accommodation. In the letter, say that due to your religious beliefs, you can't financially support or affiliate with this union. Briefly lay out what those religious beliefs are, just in 1 or 2 sentences, maybe. You don't need to sort of explain your whole, religious path or, everything, but just a few things. And then request the accommodation formally at the end of the letter. And ask that the accommodation be, ask for the accommodation to paying union dues or fees to the union. Then you're just going to send the letter to your employer and to the union both, according to any requirements that they maintain. So you'll have to go find out if there's anything specific about your union, about the way you need to send this letter. So I know, for example, the UE requires that all objections be snail mailed to Pittsburgh and addressed to one guy named Andrew Dinkelacre. So you want to go check and see if there's anything like that for your union. Then you're just going to wait for the response, see what they do. The standard accommodation offered here is that employees requesting religious accommodation are able to pay the same amount that they would pay in dues to a charity instead of to the union. But typically the charity has got to be a non-labor, non-religious 501c3 charity. So this is probably what they're going to offer you. I'm always hopeful that an employer and a union are going to do the right thing and just grant your accommodation right away, if for no other reason that they've talked to their lawyers, because you may not be worth a lot of legal bills. But what if they deny your request? This is what happened to a group of MIT graduate students just recently. The students jumped through all the hoops. They sent their letters to the right people at the union and the employer, only to be told by their union, the UE, that their request was denied because, and I'm going to quote, 3 things that their denial letters said. First, the letter said, no principles, teachings, or tenets of Judaism prohibit membership in or the payment of dues or fees to a labor union. They said, your objections are in fact political and not religious. And finally, they said, historically, many Jews, including one of their founding directors, have been members of the union. You can imagine how these graduate students felt having their beliefs explained to them by the UE General Secretary Treasurer in Pittsburgh. It was, I think, deeply frustrating for them. This formal denial from the union meant that the MIT students had 2 choices. They could either drop it and keep paying to the union, or they could file charges with the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission. That's really all you can do, right? Litigate to enforce your rights, or just kind of shrug and go home. So several of them filed charges with the EEOC, alleging discrimination on the basis of religion, race, ethnicity, cultural identity, and heritage. In order to bring a claim in federal court under Title VII, you actually have to go through the EEOC first. So there was no other option. They couldn't have gone to court. They had to go through the EEOC. You just can't skip that step to get your rights. So I want to pause here and answer a question I get all the time when I talk to Jewish employees. How religious do I have to be to request a religious accommodation under Title VII? So the law says your religious beliefs must be sincere and that you have to be requesting this accommodation on the basis of those sincere religious beliefs. but the law doesn't require you to believe the same things as the religion you belong to. It doesn't require you to believe the same things as other Jewish people. It doesn't require you to go to religious services a certain number of times a week or year or month. It doesn't require you to keep kosher. It doesn't require you to celebrate every single holiday in order to be granted these accommodations. So, you know, it's a pretty broad, the courts and the agencies look pretty broadly at this. I'm not saying you don't have to be religious at all to get a religious accommodation under Title VII. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of variance in the Jewish diaspora when it comes to religious beliefs and practice, and your employer and your union can't punish you for that. So the only thing they can really look at here is the sincerity of your beliefs. And sometimes they will, you know, sometimes they may come back at you and say, you know, you are not religious enough. I saw you, you know, I know you don't go to synagogue, or I know you don't go to church or whatever, but they can't actually, you know, all they can really do is challenge your sincerity.